Grandpa Dennis is turning.
I'm alright, cause I'm okay. It doesn't matter if my beard is gray. Just listen, I have something to say.
Grandpa Dennis is turning.
I'm alright, cause I'm okay. And this old goat has something to say. So just keep learning, for Grandpa Dennis is turning. Hello, I'm Dennis Pravensky, and welcome to Grandpa Dennis's woodturning studio. Today's task is to try and make something out of this, what looks like a root ball. I think it's just a whole series of branches coming together from an old oak tree. This is extremely heavy. This is going to be really tough to turn. But let's get on with it. The first task is bark removal. That's what the wire brush is for. The wire wheel was going to take forever, so I'm going to use this. This created a massive amount of dust, and my vacuum system just couldn't filter it all, so a cleanup afterwards was required. Let's see if this is going to work. There. Whew. Time to mix the resin. So as usual, I've got designer epoxy here, and it's the deep pour. And I'm going to be using jungle green, and I've also put in mother of pearl. So let's get started. I've been using the resin from Designer Epoxy for years. It's a great product, and they've recently become a sponsor of mine. Check them out at designerepoxy.com. If you're interested in purchasing some, you can get a 10% reduction by using Grandpa Dennis in the code box. Not quite enough, but that's all I've got, and it'll have to do. This casting took 3 containers of resin. Each container had to be thoroughly mixed in order for the process to work. During the mixing, a lot of air was introduced into the resin. This is where the vacuum chamber comes in. It pulls the air out of the resin. That's what causes the bubbles to come up. Didn't take long for the bubbles to come. I'm only halfway there for the vacuum. I gave the pail a really good spray of mold release, but there's some leftover bits of resin in there, smears of resin from the last pour. And I'm not sure if that's going to cause me a problem in trying to get this out. But I've got enough of these pails. If need be, the pail breaks and I get the casting out. I don't think there's any more danger in the bubbles overflowing the pail. So I'm just going to leave this on for 45 minutes to an hour. Now it's time to go in the opposite direction of the vacuum. I'm putting on the lid to the pressure pot. I put 60 pounds of air pressure into the pressure pot. This forces the resin into all the cracks and voids in the wood and condenses any remaining air bubbles to a microscopic level. After 3 days in the pressure pot, it is cured. Oh, let's get it out of the pail. That was easy. It's a nice color. There's going to be some white swirls in there. So I wonder what this is going to be like. Have to get her on the lathe and find out. Time to start this off. Here's the casting. I've put it between centers. I'm going to level this off so that I could put a waste block on here and glue it on. On the top of the piece, you can notice how the resin had dropped down and it left all of this wood at the surface. My first reaction was to cut this all off and make a nice flat surface. However, I think I'm going to leave it on. I'm going to drill this out, and this entire piece is going to be kind of a global form with a large opening in here, and it'll become a vase for flowers. And this part will be nice and smooth, and this part will be the raw wood. That's the plan. Let's see if I can make it work. I had a hole drilled in the center of this, a small little hole. I drilled a hole in the center of this block. I put a nail in there so that it lined it up in the center. And then I put a mark all the way around, and that's what I used to level this. Now the test comes. Or that's just about right where it was to begin with. So that's close enough. When this dries overnight, I'll turn this down into a tenon, and then I'll put my chuck on that, reverse it, and start the shaping. I am using a one-way stronghold chuck to hold the casting onto the lathe. Over the years, I've purchased more than 18 different attachments and products from One Way. And you don't have to have a one-way lathe to use their stuff. They are now one of my sponsors. Check them out and see all of the wood turning products they have at oneway.ca. Throughout my videos, I'll highlight the One Way attachments, and products that I do use, and you'll see how useful they are. As you'll see, the shaping of this globe is starting to take place. Resin is very hard in comparison to the wood, so typical wood turning tools made of high-speed steel go dull very quickly. This is where the carbide tip tools from Hunter Tools really come into play. Because they do not dull, we can get a lot of work done without stopping to resharpen over and over again. My sanding for this started at 120 grit, and it goes all the way up to 1,000. The casting is quite large and very heavy. With the extra forces put on it by the hollowing process, a steady rest is an essential tool to safely hold the piece while turning. I do a lot of measurements to determine the exact depth of the drill. I start off with a smaller drill and move on to a larger one. This process is very helpful. It saves me time in terms of turning out all of that wood, and it gives me a more accurate depth. I've now set up my articulated hollowing arm, which I designed and made to safely hollow out vessels. At the bottom tip of this, I installed a Hunter Tools carbide cutter, another sponsor of mine. I need to ensure that the glass beaker will fit into the hole with some extra room around it in case the wood should warp or expand. I don't want the glass to be locked into place. The Hunter Tool carbide tipped cutter is very aggressive and removes a lot of wood very quickly. When I get into the higher grits in the sanding process, I usually blow off the dust between grits. This helps in the sanding process. My homemade recipe for finish really makes the entire piece just pop. Well, it's almost done. I just have to remove the waste block from the bottom here, and I'll do that a little later. I've run out of time. This is the finished product, basically. The blue resin with the white swirls is pretty fantastic. It looks like flower petals. Flower petals. We've got a bouquet here. Well, I'll be. Wow, that fits. That's pretty special. This is a glass container that I found at IKEA. Put flowers in there, fill it with water. Bob's your uncle. Or in this case, Grandpa Dennis is your uncle. Well, he's your grandpa. There we go. Hey, I want to encourage people to subscribe to my YouTube channel and make sure you hit the bell. That'll give you a notification when I post a new video. Comments are always welcome. I think this is pretty spectacular.
Grandpa Dennis is turning.
I'm alright, 'cause I'm okay. Doesn't matter if my beard is gray. Just listen, I have something to say.
Dennis is turning.
I'm alright, 'cause I'm okay. And this old goat has something to say. So just keep learning, for Grandpa Dennis is turning.